June 24, 2025, Rayford, Florida. As the sun dipped behind the razor-wired walls of Florida State Prison, the countdown reached 0. Inside the death chamber, 51-year-old Thomas Lee Gudinas lay strapped to a gurney. The same man who 3 decades earlier had prowled the streets of Orlando, waiting, watching, hunting. Tonight, he wasn't saying much. But just moments before the execution drugs entered his system, he broke his silence. A statement no one expected. One that silenced the entire room. This was the end of the road for the man who committed one of Florida's most haunting crimes. A murder so brutal, it froze a city in fear and reshaped how women viewed nightlife safety in downtown Orlando. But what exactly did he say? And what was his final meal, his last request on earth, after 30 years on death row? To understand the weight of that moment, you have to go back. Back to one night in May 1994, when a young woman named Michelle McGrath stepped out of a nightclub and disappeared into darkness. Michelle McGrath was 27. Bright, grounded, and full of energy. She had just started a new chapter in her life. Born and raised in downtown Orlando, she had been crowned homecoming queen at Oak Ridge High School in 1983. This is a video of her as the homecoming queen. She worked full-time and lived modestly in a small apartment. She wasn't a partygoer. But every now and then, friends pulled her out, just for one night of fun. May 21, 1994, was one of those nights. She joined friends at Barbarella's, a well-known nightclub in the heart of downtown. Laughter, music, and glowing lights filled the night air. And when the music faded at around 2:45 a.m., Michelle walked out of the club. Alone. What she didn't know was, someone had been watching her. That someone was Thomas Lee Gudinas. Born in Michigan in 1974, Thomas moved to Florida as a teenager. He came from a fractured home, racked up juvenile records, and quickly became a familiar face to local police. By 22, Gudinas had a reputation. Petty theft, drug possession, trespassing. But beyond those minor charges were whispers. Women saying he followed them, threatened them, made them feel unsafe. None of it stuck, until Michelle. That night, while one woman, Rochelle Smith, barely escaped his grasp, Michelle wouldn't be so lucky. Just after 4 a.m., a school custodian named Jane Brand stumbled upon a disturbing scene behind Pace School in downtown Orlando. A body. Half naked. Bruised. Laying helplessly. She had been beaten, violated, and left discarded like trash in a dark alley. The trauma was horrific. Her injuries showed she fought back. She was alive through most of it. Police later confirmed. Thomas Gudinas followed her from the club, attempted to attack another woman, then turned his rage on Michelle. Her red Geo Metro was found near his apartment. Forensic evidence inside his home sealed the case. He didn't even try to run. When arrested, Gudinas offered nothing. Not an apology. Not a word. In 1995, after a highly publicized trial moved to Collier County, Judge Belvin Perry sentenced Thomas Gudinas to death. His words. The evidence quite clearly shows that the victim did not meet an easy, merciful, and painless death. For 30 years, Gudinas sat on death row. Cold. Silent. No therapy. No remorse. No rehabilitation. He avoided conflict, followed routines, and waited. His appeals failed. And in May 2025, Governor Ron DeSantis signed the death warrant. The execution was scheduled for June 24 at 6 p.m. On that day, the execution chamber was prepared. The media list was confirmed. By 5:45 p.m., the process began. Gudinas was led from his holding cell to the execution chamber just steps away. He didn't resist. Didn't stumble. He walked calmly. Eyes forward. Jaw tight. Witnesses were escorted in through secured corridors. This includes members of Michelle's family. They sat quietly behind the glass, as Gudinas was led into the chamber. At 5:56 p.m., he was strapped to the gurney. The IV was inserted. The clock began ticking. Then came the moment. When asked if he had any final words, Gudinas spoke. But his words weren't audible. However, prison officials stated that he expressed remorse and made a reference to Jesus. He met only with his mother earlier that day. Declined a spiritual advisor. But he did request a final meal, his first personal decision in decades that would be honored without a fight, a judge, or an appeal. For his last meal, Gudinas chose pepperoni pizza, French fries, and soda. The lethal drugs were administered. Then the warden gave a subtle nod. And the drugs began to flow. The first chemical, etomidate, entered his bloodstream. Etomidate is a powerful sedative, fast-acting and cold. Within 10 to 15 seconds, Gudinas's eyes fluttered. His jaw tensed. He made a sound, not a word, not a cry, more like a deep nasal gasp, involuntary and sharp. His breathing became uneven, short bursts, then long pauses. His chest rose unnaturally high once, then fell with a slow exhale. Witnesses noted a subtle shake in his shoulders. Some call it a pre-paralysis shiver, the body's brief resistance to the chemical descent into darkness. But soon, his eyes rolled back. His head tilted slightly to the right. Unconscious. Next, the rocuronium bromide, a muscle relaxant that paralyzes the entire body. It entered quietly, invisibly. But the effect was chilling. Within seconds, Gudinas's chest stopped moving. He was no longer breathing on his own. His arms, once twitching slightly, went stiff. Even his face froze, eyelids drooped halfway, mouth sealed unnaturally tight. The paralysis was total. For those watching, the stillness was frightening. One witness later said, "You expect something loud. But it's the silence that haunts you. It's like watching someone vanish without moving." The third and final drug, potassium acetate. Its job is brutal, to cause cardiac arrest by flooding the body with excess potassium, disrupting the electrical signals in the heart. Roughly 30 to 40 seconds after administration, Gudinas's heart began to respond. The monitor, still quietly beeping, started to change. The rhythm grew uneven. One sharp blip, then a long space. Another. Then, flatline. It was 6:13 p.m., the physician checked his pulse. Looked up and nodded to the warden. Behind the glass, Michelle McGrath's family did not cry. They didn't celebrate. They sat still, locked in the same expression they'd worn for 30 years. He was pronounced dead at 6:13 p.m., making it Florida's 7th execution and the most by a state in the U.S., with a total of 25 so far in the United States in 2025. Tell us what you think about this case. Was justice really served? Did Michelle's family get what they wanted? Is 30 years on death row too long or not long enough? If you like this story, do not forget to hit the subscribe button below so you will be the first to see our next haunting case.